one of the most mountainous countries in the world. Mountains occupy 68% of China's land area. Year in and year out, people who live in the mountains produce many kinds of agricultural products, grains, vegetables, and fruits, by their own hands and for their own use. People who live here lead a simple life. They go to work before sunrise and return home after sunset. Because of primitive farming techniques and difficulties in communicating, their economic situation and living standards are easily overlooked. The mountaineers cannot avoid natural disasters such as drought and flood because they make their living largely depending on the natural climate. These scenes show the 1992 drought in the mountain area of Shindu. The farmer is hoeing the field to relieve the drought. He's looking into the sky while hoeing, longing for a life-saving rain that would revive the dying corn. Water, the lifeblood of the peasants. Here comes the rain. The crop is saved. Can the farmers have a good night's sleep at last? No, the rain is too heavy. It causes serious soil erosion. The surface of the mountain land was inundated, creating numerous small trenches. The running water also eroded most of the organic components in the soil, making the land very poor. According to measurements, mountain lands have only 2% or less organic materials, much less than in the plains. Also, as the elevation rises, the temperature drops, so agricultural activities can occur only in the lower elevation of the mountain, while in the middle and upper parts only trees and grass can grow. For these reasons, in order to achieve high and steady agricultural production, the methods of production must improve, and that requires new techniques. In 1978, China's agricultural researchers introduced the covered cultivation technique from Japan, which alters the local climate of the field by using plastic cover. This kind of cultivation is also called land protection cultivation. The technique has spread very quickly in China. It is now used in an area of more than 60 million mu, causing a dramatic white revolution in agricultural production. Plastic cover is generally called thin cover for agriculture. Now let's go to the factory to see how it's manufactured. The plastic covers are of two types, polyvinyl chloride and polyethylene, according to the growth rate needs of the various kinds of crops. Either the transparent or the colored cover can be selected. Covers can also be selected according to the kind of crop. For example, this is a tobacco cover that is specifically manufactured for tobacco production. This is a vegetable leaf protective cover. The silver-like cover can be used in apple orchards, not only to add luster to the apples by radiation, but also to kill the aphids. So it is also called the aphid prevention cover. The black cover not only can prevent moisture from evaporating in large amounts, but it also restrains and destroys weeds. How can high and stable production be achieved with covered cultivation? Now let's see the illustration for an explanation. In high and cold mountain areas, the temperature is low in early spring. During the day, the temperature of the surface soil rises from the sun's radiation, while at night, as the air temperature drops, the temperature of the soil around the roots of the crop drops rapidly. So the temperature of the surface soil is relatively high in daytime and low at night, which is unfavorable for the crop. When the plastic cover is used, the soil surface is protected by the cover. Changes in soil temperature are slow and small. So when covered cultivation is adopted in high cold mountain areas, it can not only prolong a crop's growing season, but also enlarge the planting area. The mountain areas experience steady wind in spring. The moisture in the subsoil and in the plant easily evaporates, causing moisture shortage. But the plastic cover can separate the seedlings from the atmosphere, preventing or decreasing the amount of evaporation of moisture in both the soil and the plant. The cover creates a moisture barrier which benefits the plant. Covered cultivation for corn in spring also has an obvious benefit during the seedling stage. When covered cultivation is used, all the remaining roots and clods in the field should be eliminated. The topsoil should be loose and the subsoil dense. The height of the ridge is generally 7 to 11 centimeters. Enough base fertilizer should be applied to meet the need of the crop. Land is leveled, weed killer should be sprayed to prevent the growth of weeds. Then the plastic cover can be placed either by hand or by machine. The mechanical placing of the cover is less labor-intensive and time-consuming. When the cover is placed, holes need to be made according to the row and plant spacing. The row spacing is 40 to 60 centimeters and the plant spacing 35 to 40 centimeters. The depth of the hole is 3 centimeters. For all the seedlings to grow steadily, irrigation should be used according to the local conditions. 2 or 3 seeds should be sown in each hole. Then the holes should be covered with soil immediately after the sowing to ensure that the seeds grow normally. The covered cultivation of corn can also be successful by growing seedlings and transplanting them. The procedure is as follows. First, the seeds are sown in a seedling shed. Then the seedlings are transplanted after they develop 2 leaves and a discernible stalk. After the transplanting, the cover is installed. Soil should be densely placed on the edge of the cover. Then holes are made in the cover to let the seedlings grow. Around the seedlings, soil is banked to give support to the seedlings. has good management of moisture and fertilizer in the later growing stages of corn, the increase in production will be even more obvious. According to corn production statistics involving 35,000 mu of land, the average yield of the covered land is 543 kilograms per mu, while that of the uncovered land only reaches 385 kilograms per mu. Covered land produced 41% more corn than the uncovered land. Of covered cultivation of the potato in mountain land resulted in an early maturing and an increased yield. The covered cultivation of the potato is generally in the form of wide ridge and double line. After the land is leveled, ridges with a base width of 50 centimeters and a height of 20 to 25 centimeters are formed. For healthy potato growth, enough base fertilizer is needed. When the cover is placed, holes with a row spacing of 20 to 25 centimeters and plant spacing of 20 to 25 centimeters can be made on the ridges. Then the seeds are sown in the holes and the soil backfilled to cover the holes. Have adapted the method of placing the cover after sowing. In this method, after the ridges are formed, they are seeded in a given row spacing and plant spacing. The section of potato is placed downward and the eye upward. The plastic cover is placed right after the sowing. In time, check to make sure the seedlings can grow out of the cover. Stage, the seedlings of covered land are stronger than those of uncovered land. The investigation in Mintogo Township, Beijing, showed that the covered land has a potato yield more than 68% more than the uncovered land. The technique for covered cultivation of grapes. In the autumn of the previous year, the land for growing seedlings should be plowed deeply and enough fertilizer applied. The land is leveled in the next spring when the soil thaws. The furrows are required to be 1 to 1.2 meters in width, and the spacing between the furrows should be 30 centimeters. To prevent weeds from growing, herbicide should be sprayed before the cover is placed. The requirement is that the cover be kept close to the soil, and the cover edges should be held down with soil to prevent the cover from being blown away by the wind. Trimming and bud sprouting should be done before cutting. Twigs with potential eyes should be selected for cuttings. The upper end of the cutting should be cut flat and the lower end tilted. The cuttings can be put into root-promoting powder for 16 to 24 hours to promote the root growth. The cuttings are usually transplanted in the first 10 days of April. 3 or 4 lines can be placed in each furrow. The plant spacing is 10 to 15 centimeters. A hole should be made in the cover with a thin stick before inserting a cutting. The cutting should be inserted deep enough so that the eyes on top of the cuttings are at the same level as the cover. Then the whole cutting is buried by soil. In order for the young buds to grow upward, temporary frames are needed, and unwanted shoots and stems should be cut. For grapes, the research results of the Chongli Fruit Tree Research Institute of Hebei Province prove that covered cultivation generally leads to high rates of emergence and survival. Compared with uncovered cultivation, covered cultivation has a 10 to 17% higher emergence rate and up to an 84% higher survival rate. Also, the covered cultivation causes the grape to yield fruit 1 year before the uncovered method. Because covered cultivation has become more widespread, we were able to pay a visit to Shihuiyao Township, Chengbi County, which is located in the recesses of Yanshan Mountain. The head of the township told us, "We live in a remote mountain area and are backward in science and technology. Here the economy is weak in the following 3 aspects. First, the mountain area has a high elevation and low temperature. The frost-free period is short, so the growth period is also short. That makes the production very low. Secondly, the mountain area is in short supply of water. No irrigation is available. The land is poor. Crops cannot grow well. In the year of drought, nothing can be harvested. Thirdly, the climate in the mountain area is harsh. It is windy and sandy. Most of the moisture evaporates. Generally speaking, sowing in early spring is possible. Now we adopt the covered cultivation technique. The cover conserves the moisture, heat, and fertilizer. So it is possible now to sow in early spring, which prolongs the growth period and increases the production of crops. Take corn as an example. The output per hectare was around 6,000 kilograms before the covered cultivation was adopted. With other production conditions being the same, the output of covered land is now 3,000 to 4,000 kilograms more. The economic situation in this mountain area is greatly improved and the living standard of the people is much better. Now I am going to visit a farmer's family. Look, the little mountain village becomes rich these years. New houses are being built. The 3 generations of the family are making jiaozi. Jiaozi is the favorite food of the people living in the north part of China. In the past, jiaozi is made only on festivals. Now it becomes common to eat jiaozi. The 80-year-old auntie is very happy making jiaozi. All this is because they adopted the covered cultivation and had a high production. At present, animal breeding in plastic sheds is developing rapidly. The plastic cover used for animal breeding sheds has a thickness of 8 to 12 millimeters. Plastic sheds come in 2 forms, round top and tilted top. The frame can be made of reinforced concrete or earth and wood. Despite the cold wind outside the shed, it is like spring inside the shed. Even in the winter, milk production will not decrease if the cattle are raised inside the shed. When sheep produce their young in winter, the lamb is easily a victim of the cold because the critical temperature for the lamb is 13 degrees below 0 centigrade, so the survival rate is very low. But with the shed, the survival rate of lambs has increased more than 13%. The same is true for calves. When they are raised inside the shed, they thrive. Besides, the cow dung is easily gathered, which in turn can be used in agriculture. Cultivation technique offers many agricultural benefits. At the same time, it also can cause problems. After a long period of use, a large amount of plastic cover was left in the field. This not only polluted the environment, but also caused trouble for agriculture production. Look, the peanut on this piece of land died as a result of the plastic cover that remained in the field. Now we invite the head of Beijing Plastic Factory to comment on the proper disposal and developing uses for the plastic cover. Our first task is to manufacture covers that are durable and easy to retrieve. The other is that we refuse to produce plastic covers whose thickness is less than 0.08 of a millimeter, because in our country the retrieval is mainly by hand. Other covers, like light-dissolving covers, are hard to develop and are not suitable for the present situation in our country. The cover that remained in the field should be taken back and washed. Then it is put into a smashing machine to produce plastic sand. With the retrieved raw material, large and small planting containers and other beautiful plastic articles can be made, realizing the dream of turning bane into boon. Cultivation, an important method of increasing agricultural production, can be applied to various kinds of crops, especially in remote mountain areas. In this film, the covered cultivation technique for some main crops will be explained. covered cultivation of rice, the location of the field should be sheltered from the wind and be in full sun. The soil should be loose with the field level but with deep ditches. It is best if the furrows have a width of 1.5 to 1.7 meters and the base fertilizer be adequate. The acid level should be checked so that the pH value is above 7. In order to prevent diseases in the seedling stage, a 1/1000th solution of Dipterex should be applied. Attention should be paid to the amount of seed to be needed. For transplanting seedlings with 3 leaves, the seed amount is 200 to 300 kilograms per move. After sowing, the soil should be leveled with a flat-top shovel so that the seeds and soil are in close contact. The poles can be erected and sheds built. Usually, the small arch sheds have a height of 40 centimeters. The cover should be installed with the direction of the wind. At both ends of the cover, the soil should anchor 12 to 15 centimeters of edge. Another way of growing seedlings is in a plastic shed. The seedlings are placed in small containers in order to grow quickly. It is important for the seedlings to be completely covered to achieve a higher temperature for rapid growth. So a daily check is necessary to see that the cover has not been blown away by the wind. Some quick-acting fertilizers can be applied according to the condition of the seedlings. When the seedlings have 2 leaves, they should be ventilated to let them gradually adapt to the natural environment and be ready for transplanting. Experiments have shown that the seedlings grown under the plastic cover have more roots and stronger stems. In a mountain area where water is in short supply, the covered cultivation of dry rice can be used. For the covered cultivation of dry rice, rich soil is also needed. It is better to plow and level the field in autumn. The width of the furrows is to be 85 centimeters and the depth 35 centimeters. Since it is difficult to hold the weeds after the cover is placed, weed killer should be sprayed first. The cover should be placed immediately after the weed killer is sprayed.
It is common to sow 4 lines in each furrow. Holes are punched with a row spacing of 15 to 30 centimeters and a plant spacing of 10 to 15 centimeters. The depth of the holes is between 1 and 2 centimeters. 8 to 10 seeds are sown in each hole, and then the seeds should be covered with 2 centimeters of soil. For the seeds to grow steadily, they should be irrigated. Emerge, some should be transplanted to the places where the seedlings have not yet grown. The seedlings must be transplanted with their original soil to ensure survival. The covered cultivation of dry rice improves the soil and strengthens the root structure. In the covered cultivation of dry rice, attention should be paid to the control of moisture and fertilizer in the middle and later stages of growth, especially in the greening stage and before heading. Besides the necessary fertilizing, irrigation should be used in order for the rice to grow normally. The research in Sindhu County, Hebei Province, showed that the covered cultivation of dry rice yields 300 to 400 kilograms of rice per moo. The economic effect is obvious. The wheat in China is of 2 kinds, winter wheat and spring wheat. The winter wheat is seeded in autumn. In this film, the focus is on the covered cultivation of winter wheat. Winter wheat usually dies in the mountain area because of the low temperature. In order for the wheat to survive the winter, the plastic cover is in place for the first 10 days of November. The field should be cleared before the cover is laid. The cover should be pulled smooth and the edges anchored with soil to prevent the cover from blowing. Regular checking of the cover for damage is important. Any damage to the cover should be repaired promptly. In the spring, the cover is gradually removed over a period of 4 to 5 days. First, part of the edge is lifted to acclimatize the wheat to the environment. A sudden opening of the cover will cause the wheat to become yellow and withered. When the average air temperature is above 3 degrees centigrade, all the covers can be removed. Compared with the uncovered wheat seedlings, the covered wheat seedlings have more roots and stronger stems. Fertilizer is applied immediately after the cover is removed. 5 to 10 kilograms of urea is applied to each move. Then the field is irrigated and carefully managed. This results in a high yield. According to the statistics of the Agriculture Bureau in Beijing, the average yield of covered field is 400 to 500 kilograms per move, roughly 20% more than that of uncovered land. There are many types of covered cultivation for the tomato plant. In this film, a newly created technique for covered cultivation in furrows is introduced. Compared with other methods, this technique gives the fruit a 10 to 20 day market advantage. The seedling period is also earlier. The furrows are generally made with a base width of 50 centimeters, a top width of 67 centimeters, and a depth of 20 to 27 centimeters. Unlike the uncovered cultivation in which the seedlings are transplanted with large buds and flowers, in the covered cultivation in furrows, the seedlings are transplanted when small buds first appear. This is because the temperature in the covered furrows is high. The plants tend to bloom early, but if they bloom too early, the flowers are likely to fall. That will affect the growth of early fruit. To prevent the tomato seedlings from pushing up the cover, the seedlings should be placed half standing with the growing point towards the direction of the irrigation opening. The cover should be pulled smooth, with the edges anchored by soil to prevent the cover from being blown by wind. When the tops of the seedlings begin to push the cover, ventilation holes should be cut. As the weather becomes warmer, the ventilation holes should be opened wider to allow the plant to grow through the cover. 7 days later, the cover is cut down the middle with the edges anchored by soil. From now on, it will be the same as ordinary planting. Should be prepared to support the tomato stems. In the middle and later periods of tomato growth, the withered leaves under the first spike fruit should be removed for ventilation. Compared with other techniques, the covered cultivation of tomato in furrows has the benefit of earlier seeding, earlier transplanting, earlier bearing of fruit, and earlier maturing for market. Cucumber planting in spring in cold mountain areas involves growing the seedlings and then transplanting. The seedlings are grown in a plastic shed and then transplanted. In this way, better results can be achieved.
The cucumber can be transplanted when the ground temperature is above 10 degrees centigrade. In the Beijing area, the cucumber seedlings are transplanted from the plastic shed around the 20th of March to a single layer of cover. If the cover is double, transplanting can be done 5 to 7 days earlier. Avoid planting the seedlings too deep. The soil around the seedlings should be at the same level as the field. If conditions permit, a small arched shed may be added for warmth. Cucumbers like warm weather, so the temperature inside the shed should be maintained at 28 to 32 degrees centigrade during the day and not below 13 to 18 degrees centigrade at night. Stable yields of cucumber, timely fertilizing and irrigation are necessary. Because of the high temperature and moisture inside the shed, plant diseases and insect pests are problems. Once they occur, corrective measures must be taken as early as possible. The results of cover cultivation of cucumber are the early bearing of fruit and high yield. According to the statistics gathered in Beijing in 1991, the yield of cucumber is increased by 18% because of the increased area of covered cultivation. It is essential that the balance between supply and demand be adjusted for market advantage. The covered cultivation of radish requires that the windproof frame be built the previous winter. The seeding is done in the early spring after the soil has thawed. The field is irrigated immediately after the seeding, and the cover is placed before all the water seeps into the ground. In this way, the cover can be kept clean and latched securely. After most of the seedlings emerge, the amount of ventilation is increased gradually. The cover is taken away first from the ends and then from the southern side of the furrows. Eventually, all the cover is removed. When the roots of the radish begin to expand, fertilizer should be applied once or twice during irrigation according to the needs of the radish plant. The research done in the mountain area of Chengping County, Beijing, showed that the seedlings in the covered fields emerged more than 3 days earlier, and the fruit harvest was 7 to 10 days earlier than that in the uncovered fields. Production increased by 52.1%.
cover cultivation of kidney beans have 2 seasons each year, the spring season and the autumn season. The kidney bean is usually planted in furrows that are 1.33 meters wide. The covered part is 70 to 80 centimeters in width. 2 lines are planted in each furrow with the plant spacing 15 to 20 centimeters. 3 to 4 seeds are placed in each hole. The cover is placed immediately after seeding. When the plants emerge, holes are cut in the cover to let the seedlings grow. Cultivation of kidney beans assures a steady market supply spanning the seasons and also increases production. In general, the increase is above 20%. The covered cultivation of vegetables, especially the vegetables planted in early spring, such as sugarcane, eggplant, celery, onion, and wax gourd, is more common than the covered cultivation of field crops. Cash crops also benefit from covered cultivation. The covered cultivation of cotton intercropped with wheat is discussed in this film. For the covered cultivation of cotton, the field must be leveled carefully. The flatness of the field has a direct effect on the covered cultivation. The fertility of the soil is also an important factor for the increased production. So before seeding, enough fertilizer must be applied with the proper ratio of nitrogen, phosphates, and potash. There are 2 methods of cotton covered cultivation. One is to cover the field after the seeding, and the other is before the seeding. The most common practice is to cover the field after seeding. There are 2 ways of planting: furrow seeding and hole seeding. In furrow seeding, the seeds are planted in 5 centimeter deep furrows. The amount of seed for each moo is not less than 5 to 10 kilograms. After the seeding, the seed is covered with soil so that the seeds have good contact with the soil. The plastic cover is loosely placed on the soil. The edges are anchored by soil to prevent the cover from being blown by the wind. Holes are punched on the cover to allow the seedlings to emerge. Although the cover provides a good growing environment for the cotton, field management of the seedlings should not be neglected. Timely irrigation and fertilizer application is necessary. If plant diseases and insect pests occur, pesticide must be sprayed. The cover cultivation of cotton is a breakthrough for China.
The average yield per moo is 80 to 100 kilograms for covered cultivation, which is 25 to 30 kilograms more than that of uncovered cultivation. The peanuts of covered cultivation have flourishing roots, so the land for peanut planting should be plowed to 20 centimeters in depth. The planting of peanuts has 4 steps: hole drilling, watering, seeding, and covering with soil, which are to be done sequentially. The covering of soil over peanuts should be done with care. The holes should be tightly packed so that the seedlings will come out early. When planting a large area, the field should be checked regularly so that the compacted soil cover can be loosened to let the seedlings freely grow. Peanut is a type of plant that blooms above ground, but bears fruit underground. The fruit needle descends into the soil to bear fruit. In order for the fruit needle to pass through the plastic cover, it is necessary to surround each plant with a 1 centimeter layer of fine soil for 20 centimeters around each individual plant. Scarab and grub are the main pests of peanut. To control them, pesticide can be used to treat the seeds, or 90% solution of Dipterex applied to the roots. Another important factor for a high yield of covered cultivation of peanuts is the adequate irrigation of the field during blooming and bearing. The average yield per moo of the covered cultivation of peanut is 300 to 350 kilograms, which is 100 kilograms more than that of uncovered cultivation. The covered cultivation of sugarcane has 2 forms: new planted sugarcane and root-shortened sugarcane. The newly planted sugarcane is generally planted in straight furrows. The width is usually 40 to 50 centimeters. Because of the narrow width, the planting procedures must be followed strictly in order to increase light penetration and raise the production. For the covered cultivation of root-shortened sugarcane, the field should be irrigated before the cover is placed, and 3 or 4 kilograms of the pesticide funandan should be applied to each moo to prevent snout moths, larvae, and grub. The width of cover used for root-shortened sugarcane is from 60 to 80 centimeters, wider than that for newly planted sugarcane. When the air temperature is above 20 degrees centigrade, the cover can be removed. Compared with uncovered cultivation, the covered cultivation of sugarcane has an obvious effect of increasing the production.
research proved that the covered cultivation technique significantly results in increased production. It provides an improved method for the majority of farmers in the mountain areas. As new technology develops to simplify the retrieval of the plastic cover, the future of covered cultivation is bright.